Hi everyone. Today we are going to be solving the popular LeetCode problem 2 sum. So let's go over the problem. You are given an array of integers nums and an integer target. Return indices of the two numbers such that they add up to targets. You may assume that each input would have exactly one solution and you may not use the same element twice. You can return the answer in any order. So example 1, we have 2, 7, 11, 15 and target of 9. So the answer here or the output here is 0 and 1. That's because 2 plus 7 is going to give us 9 and 2 is at index 0, 7 is at index 1. Yeah, explanation: because num 0 plus num 1 equals to 9, we return 0 and 1. For example 2, we have 3, 2 and 4 and target of 6. So the output here is going to be 1 and 2 because 2 plus 4 is 6, 2 is at index 1, 4 is at index 2. So let's solve the problem. So how do we approach this problem, or how do we solve this problem? So to solve this problem, we have two solutions. The first solution is the brute force solution, and the second solution is the hash map solution, or the brute force approach and the hash map approach. But in this video, we are going to be using the brute force solution. So how do we solve it with the brute force solution? The thing is that we are going to use two loops. We are going to have two loops, first loop and the second loop, or outer loop and the inner loop. Now, what are these two loops doing? The first loop is going to select one number, while the second loop will check that number against every number after it. So what I'm trying to say is that the first loop, in this example, 2, 7, 11, 15, the first loop select 2, and the second loop what checks every number after it, which is after 2, so which is 7, 11 and 15. Yeah, so let's start coding. So let's write our first loop. So I'm using Java. Yes, you can actually use any programming language because the concept is actually the same thing. So for int I equals to 0, I less than nums.length, right? Then we increment, right? I plus plus. That's the first loop, or the outer loop. Then we are going to do another loop, which is the inner loop. So the inner loop is inside this loop. That is why we call it inner loop. So for int j equals to I plus 1. So here now we start the inner loop or the second loop from I plus 1, which is because we cannot use the same element twice and we don't want to check the same pair again. Yeah, so plus 1, then we'll say j less than nums.length, then we'll say j plus plus, right? Yeah, so inside the block of the inner loop, what we are going to do next is to what check if the numbers are what equal to the target. And how do we do that? We are going to use the if statement. When I say if nums I equals to if nums I plus nums j equals to target, then what we found the match. We are going to what return the array. So we say return new int and index I and j. We are good. New int, index I and j. So if we don't now find any match after all the iterations, we just want to return empty array. Return new int, empty array. Yeah, so that's the solution to the problem. So let's try to run the code and let's see. Okay, yeah, all the test cases passed. Yep. So let's go through the solution again. Yeah, so this is the brute force solution, or the brute force approach, anyhow we want to put it. Yeah, so let's go through the solution again. Like I said, we have the first loop or the outer loop and the second loop or the inner loop. Now what the first loop is doing is that it's selecting one number, then the inner loop is what checking that number against every number after it. So in this solution, so let's say we have 2, 7, 11, 15. Sorry, in this input, let's say we have 2, 7, 11, 15. The first loop selects the first one, which is 2, right? So I equals to 0. So I here is the index. Index equals to 0, right? And in this place, index 0 is what? 2. So it will select 2. Then the inner loop says I plus 1. So 0 plus 1 is 1. And 1 here is 7, right? Index 1 here is 7, right? So in the code block, it now checks 2 plus 7. If 2 plus 7 equals to 9, then it returns the indices of 2 and 7 because we found a match. Then let's say after every iterations, we did not find any match, we just return what? The empty array. Yeah, so this solution works, right? Yeah, but the time complexity is O(n) squared. Yeah, the time complexity is O(n) squared because in the worst case, we check almost every possible pair. So that's O(n) squared. Yeah, and what about the space complexity? The space complexity is O of 1 because we did not actually use any extra data structure. So yeah, this works, yes, but we can actually optimize it using the second approach, which is the hash map approach or hash map solution, which will come up in the other video. Thank you.